Welcome to the Roger Report Live on the entertainment side. I am here with my main man, Jado. We are reviewing Straw, the new Tyler Perry movie that was released on Netflix. I'm going to say this movie was a very interesting watch. I think it's an attention grabber, and I definitely recommend people go see it because it's easy. It's right on Netflix. You ain't even got to get up and go nowhere. So I think this was a pretty cool film. I think it was a pretty cool film. Not quite what I would expect out of Tyler Perry in some ways, but a lot of what I would expect out of Tyler Perry in other ways. What say you, Jado?
Man, I agree. Roger, definitely interesting movie, especially with some of the topics that we discuss on your channel, bro. So yeah, I think it fit right in as far as something that, like some of the subject matters that we have on your channel. And yeah, it was very interesting. I look at it as I try to study these movies to see what type of message that they're putting out. But definitely it kept my attention.
Okay, now I'm gonna say this was an interesting story where you had a woman going through a mental breakdown. Just a lot of bad stuff was happening on the same day. Now I'm gonna say I think they did a lot to draw empathy or sympathy out of people because Tyler Perry was kind of pushing this single black mother and all the bad things that can happen to a single black mother. Now I wasn't quite as empathetic to that because when if you're a single mother and you're not a widow, I don't really pay no attention to it. From an emotional standpoint, my emotions are not really there. You don't have to be a single mother if you live in America, but we don't know exactly how. But she chose to be one, and my thing is, I'm good with that. If that's your choice, that's your choice. You got to suffer certain consequences for it. But we had a woman dealing with issues with people thinking her child is in danger. She had to go through an eviction because she just didn't pay the rent. She had a lot of stress and drama going on, and as I was watching the film, I kind of was on some. Why don't you just pay the rent? Because she did have a job, and they did mention she had a second job. So
Two jobs. Yes, two
I don't
jobs.
see why you just don't pay the rent. Now, I guess she did have to buy medicine for her daughter, so medicine can run up some bills. I will say that. So I can be understanding toward that. They didn't give us a real idea of what the medicine costs, so you just kind of guessing on how much medicine had to be bought. Did it tug at your heartstrings, Jado? Because I think that was the purpose of this particular movie to really kind of tug at your heartstrings for it to culminate the way it did.
Roger, I have to stay conscious of that, man, because they did. Man, Tyler Perry did a good job of attempting to tug at my heartstrings, but no, it did not happen. Though, I had to really keep in mind, like when I compared her to, if you really compare Taraji's character, what was her name was Janaya.
Yeah, Janaya.
Janaya. If you compare her to Nicole, the bank manager, the only difference was. Well, the main difference, the most important difference was Nicole was married and she had two children.
Yeah, yeah.
And Janiyah was not married. And they gave no background as to, who this man was or what happened or anything. So it kind of made you feel like, oh, most people are going to assume, oh, it's some guy that so-called abandoned her or some, bad guy that, didn't want to be in his child's life. But, no, it didn't pull at my heartstrings, to answer your question.
Yeah, yeah, and I do believe that was a major attempt. So those who want their heartstrings pulled at, I think this movie will grab a lot of folks' heartstrings. I really
Oh,
do
yeah,
believe the way it was
absolutely.
set up. I look at people who make tough choices like that and just be like, okay, that's cool, that's you. And it don't really bother me. I'm not really into it. Now I do accept that life is not fair, so it's kind of sad that she had to take care of a sick child, which may have led to the school believing that the child was facing some level of endangerment because that was an issue going on throughout the movie that she was impressed. It impressed upon her enough that the school is worried about the child being in danger. And she said the little baby girl just slipped in the bathtub and hurt herself. And I mean, that's cool. That's one incident. But you of course, if your child is in a school, especially public school, you got to be careful about how your child shows up. So I just thought that was an interesting take to kind of throw that in there. Now, I'm gonna say this was a well-written movie, though. It was a well-written movie. I think Tyler Perry definitely gave black women their shine in this, but I mean, you kind of expect that from a Tyler Perry movie. Tiana Taylor played Officer Raymond, I believe it was. Did a fantastic job. They had her looking super good to be a police officer out in the field. Her hair was all done up, and I think she is what I think women call today glowed up. I think that's what I hear them saying. I think Tiana Taylor was glowed up out there as Officer Raymond. So, which I think was good for black women to see. That was something they definitely gonna cheer on at the end of the day. And she did a fantastic job based on what she had to do with the situations going on in the movie. So that's why I say I think it was a very well written movie. I do think that.
Yeah, Detective Raymond came off as very, I would say aggressive in some sense of the word. Very assertive, very take charge, boss chick type of detective or whatever. I thought it was played up a little too much for me, for my taste or whatever. But I get what Tyler Perry was doing. Like, even she was kind of her partner, her co-detective or whatever, her partner. She was kind of like, she was like leading him, and maybe she was the senior person as far as those two go. And she was very assertive with the FBI agents and even the other officer from the other county, the white officer. She was very assertive and aggressive and violent at that one time.
I don't know if I would have told. I mean, I don't know if that was a good job for Officer Raymond to do, to get out there and just go around slapping mugs out there in the field. I wouldn't recommend anybody get so mad they go slap somebody else and everybody got guns drawn. Like, that's not a good setup, if you ask me. So, there was something going on with a particular officer that was made an issue because Janiyah was in a situation where she could have just kind of surrendered herself, but she was really afraid of one particular officer. And I would say, she had a good enough reason to be afraid, because if a guy say, I'm gonna find a legal way to kill you, now I'm not gonna say stuff like this really happens to black women a lot, but this particular thing could have, because you can always, even a sister could draw the worst out of a cop if they don't have a quote unquote good interaction with you. And they'll treat you just like you expect them to treat a brother. So, when an officer say, I'm gonna find a legal way to kill you, you can't just take that as he just talking, because he is armed by by the government. We give him a gun and we say, hey, make a decision on if you should shoot or not. So when a brother say, well, not a brother per se, but when a man say, I'm gonna find a legal way to kill you, I think you should take that a little bit serious. So the fact that he became kind of an integral part of the story and why stuff kind of went out the way it did, I think that was a very interesting touch to put into the film.
Yeah, man, I think they played that up quite a bit, because typically, like as you said, Roger, like these police officers, when they pull over women in general and black women especially, they kind of tiptoe. They're kind of very lenient with them, unless they get overly belligerent or combative. Then they typically will, try to avoid any conflict. But he was extra aggressive. Yeah, he was threatening, and he was on it, man. He said, "I'm gonna try to find a way to blow your brains out." Didn't he say something about blowing her brains out?
Like that,
yeah, it was very violent and very. And then the female officer that came on the scene was trying to. I mean, she was kind of trying to like, hey, stand back, relax, chill out. But at the same time, she was like, hey, I will sick him on you if you get out of pocket. And when she was talking to Janiyah.
Yeah. Now I do think the way they put this story together, and then you basically have a woman who going through certain struggles, and they were emphasizing the certain struggle that she was going through, and they kind of aligned it up where she got hit with so much stuff on the same day that you may say that caused her to snap, but I'm gonna say honestly, it didn't look like that any of that caused her to snap. I'm not gonna say that. She just went into a bank robbery. She had a bad situation going on. And sometimes you can actually be carrying something and not pay attention to the fact that you're carrying something. And then people start acting a certain way around you. So I'm not gonna say she ever truly snapped because of any of those things that they kind of put into the field. And I don't want to tell too much of what's going on because I think it's a very interesting movie, and I like for people to kind of see how it unfolded. But I think it was just, she just wasn't conscious enough about what she was doing in certain moments. And then you made something that wasn't a big deal escalating to a huge deal. But I think part of what Tyler Perry was pushing was that the racism Black people will face at the end of the day. But it was done in a way that it really was a molehill that got turned into Mount Everest. Real talk. It wasn't just a mountain. It was a big, important mountain. So that's why I say I think the writing was very good in this particular film. It definitely was interesting. And for those who think this is just a typical Tyler Perry movie, I'm going to say, no, it went into a whole different direction that you really didn't expect. So there was some very familiar things going on with a Tyler Perry film where, he props up Black women and their experiences and things like that. So all that was in there, but how the film progressed forward, it didn't end in a expected Tyler Perry film type of way. He went to a whole different direction. So I'm going to applaud Tyler for doing something different, at least part of the movie.
It was a nice twist at the end that kind of, it was a nice spin at the end. That was very interesting.
Yeah. And it did show that you never know where friendships can be formed and what type of pressure. Even though you have certain amounts of pressure on a person, that a friendship still can be formed in a very unusual way, which I think is something normal for Black folks. And I will say that the supporting characters, or the characters who you wouldn't think would be a big part of the deal, are more of a background type of characters. It got played out well because I'm gonna say with what was going on, it was still somewhat realistic even with those stressful situations, especially when you think about how Black people would treat this a particular situation like this to go on. So it was kind of a realistic type of story. It was kind of out there. I mean, it is a movie, but I'm gonna say the way he had folks moving amongst the background was realistic enough that it was easy to buy into what the storyline is.
Yeah, it wasn't totally far-fetched. Like if you put all these incidents and situations together, string them together, you can see it playing out in a similar fashion.
Yeah. And it was nice to see some actors that we are, a lot of us would probably be familiar with, because there was some folks in there that they're gonna remind you of some old TV shows and whatnot that you used to see. So I think altogether it was a very good job. Now, would you highly recommend this one, or what you say to that? Would you highly recommend it? Not really recommend it at
not
all?
Highly. I would recommend it, but I wouldn't say highly though. Just a regular recommend. Yeah, I would recommend it.
No, I think it's an interesting movie, and I'm definitely gonna say it's one of the better Tyler Perry films. I will say that. I'm gonna definitely say it's one of the better Tyler Perry films. Now, this is the second drama that I reviewed this year, so I'm gonna actually say that as far as dramas goes, because I have seen The Last Rodeo, which was a drama, and I'm looking at this film as a drama. And The Last Rodeo was a pretty good film that I definitely would recommend. Now, I'm gonna say, believe it or not, I'm gonna put this film over The Last Rodeo. So if you gotta watch a film, I'm gonna say watch this one even before you watch The Last Rodeo. And The Last Rodeo was a pretty good film. So I think they did a fantastic job, and I do actually recommend it. And I'm gonna say it's gonna be a pleasant surprise for a Tyler Perry film. I'm gonna say it like that. It's a pleasant surprise for a Tyler Perry film. So I think people will enjoy this one. So it's on Netflix. Check it out. See what you think. I'm pretty sure you're gonna agree with us. Because we're gonna give you the real on this channel. We definitely gonna give you the real. So if you like this type of content, y'all make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be dropping stuff like this daily. So we'll always be around. Okay, so I'm Roger. We getting ready to check on out. I got Jado with me. Any last words from you, Jado?
No, last words is if you're interested in like current social issues, a little bit of crime, a little bit of action, I think this will be a good movie to watch. And yeah, I do recommend people do watch it. And yeah, that's all.
All right, y'all. So I'm Roger. This is Jo, and we are out of here.
Peace.